basically what it said.
Hey.
Anyway, hello everybody and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. So excited to be with you today because we got some really serious topics to talk about. And like we always say, we don't shy away from addressing what's need to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
The reason being because this is what this channel is all about. We can't be cherry picking. You guys know this by now, right? But at the same time, we truly appreciate your continued support. If this is your first time landing here, please hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. What are we going to be talking about today?
Okay, so this is something that we have not talked about much, but I think is really important. So we spend a lot of time talking about the amount of growth that China has, which is fantastic because China's growth actually is very substantial.
Yeah.
The issue is this.
Yeah.
China is actually also in massive amounts of debt.
Okay, so we're gonna be covering the debt issue.
So we're going to be covering
Perfect.
we're going to be covering a threefold issue in terms of China's economy.
Okay.
Because this debt crisis didn't come out of nowhere, but China has a massive debt problem. They also have a massive youth unemployment problem,
That's
and the serious problem.
Yeah.
Serious problem. So it may be that they have, graduated millions of young people out of scientific majors in universities.
Yeah.
But if they don't have jobs for them, then that's a huge problem. The last part of it is that Biden just came out, the United States just came out with legislation that says there are certain types of companies that can no longer be invested in, started, sold in China. And these are all in the tech sector.
Yeah,
so these are all right. So these are all microchips. These are all technology.
Yeah.
And the problem is that we are way far gone in that arena. So there's a bunch of loopholes in that because of course there has to be.
Sure.
So we're going to do the multitude of what on earth is going on in China's economy.
So basically we're going to be dealing with economics today.
Of China today.
Perfect. So, but before we delve deeper into all this, I want to remind you of two things. The upcoming course, right?
Yes. We have an upcoming government course, guys, that David is going to be teaching about how the U.S. government actually works, because as most of you know, it doesn't work the way that most people think it does, including Americans.
Oh, Americans don't even know.
Absolutely.
They're oblivious to the reality of how the government is.
Yep. So,
and the second thing has to do with the Rumble. We've been, I'm going to share the links. I don't know if you guys know that yesterday we did back again, our first session yesterday. So I'm going to post the link for you for both the channel on a Rumble, and I'm gonna post also the link for you for the episodes we did yesterday, which was about Imran Khan. You won't believe what we had to say. Well,
yes,
you all know the reason why we're doing Rumble, right? It's because we feel we are limited in how much we can share with you.
Yeah.
And to me, you can do a half job. Either do it right or not at all.
Yeah.
But we all know how YouTube is. You're aware of what happened to Skywriter and so forth. So it's not about the fear. It's the idea of we wanted to have a platform where we can talk openly.
Yeah.
And honestly and straightforward. Don't sugarcoat it. Of course, we don't do that here. But on a Rumble, it's much better.
Yeah.
So head out there, subscribe to that, because we're going to be there on a weekly basis. And if we notice there is a reception onto that, we're going to increase the amount of how many times we're going to be doing shows on.
Yeah,
so for now, we're doing once a week, and we'll move into that. So
well, and if you guys have questions that you sort of know we can't really answer here, go and put them in the comments on Rumble, and we'll see if we can answer them there.
Perfect. All right.
And I have our Rumble URL down here. So if you guys want to check it out, that's the URL. That's the link to it.
All right, let's get on our topic about China.
Yes.
So there is a lot going on with China, of course,
there is.
On all fronts. But today, like we said, we're gonna focus on economics. You've been in China before, right?
I have.
So you did a school tour, I believe. Was it
so
I did,
I did a corporate visit. So my degree is actually in global business. And so my intention was to be an expat in China or South Korea after I graduated. And so I did corporate visits. And at the time, I was actually very impressed with how quickly China's economy was growing. But one of the reasons that any economy grows actually is because of debt. So there is a cycle, and Ray Dalio actually spells this cycle out extremely well. And one of the ways that countries really grow and gain power is through acquiring debt. So if you look at this, so this is from Morgan Stanley. So this is China's level of debt. You have household debt, which has grown substantially. So this is from 2008 until now, and then projected into the future. So we have household debt in China that has grown substantially, and we have government debt that's grown substantially, but it's actually non-financial corporations that have grown in massive amounts of debt. So what we're looking at right now is China's debt is now 300% of GDP, which is really substantial. And so in a sense, we've talked a lot about the United States and our debt crisis, because our debt crisis is horrendous. And we've just been, proverbially kicking the can down the road until we can't do it anymore. But unfortunately, China seems to be doing a similar thing also. And so one of the big problems that's happened, so, we have.
But hold on a second.
Yes.
Is it at the same level as the United States? In other words, the
nothing is at the same level.
Okay, so that means China is on a safer path, shall we say, in comparison to the US for the outcome.
No,
you know what I'm getting at?
Maybe not. So here's the thing. So the country that actually has the largest amount of debt per GDP is Japan. And Japan has been functioning this way for a while, for actually a long while. But the real issue with China is that there's kind of, how there was or is a coordinated attack against the US dollar to sort of dethrone it as global currency. Right now we're seeing
I gotta challenge you.
Okay.
I gotta challenge you. Yes. Just on the wording, coordinated.
Yeah.
Because how that happened to begin with, due to our own
I agree.
Policies.
I agree.
So it's
sanctions.
A reaction.
Absolutely.
It's a reaction.
Absolutely, it is.
So yes, I see the wording you meant.
Yeah.
You meant good with it. However, I have to. I couldn't this lit pass. You know me, I'm like a filter.
Yes, you absolutely are.
I have to make sure. But I know what you meant. I know what you mean. It's a coordinate in the sense of countries are fed up.
They are fed up. Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I just find out that about 90% projected all the energy transactions will be done in none other than US dollar.
Yeah.
That's moving forward. But you're absolutely correct. Countries have coordinated to move that direction.
Right. So. They have, and understandably, like you're absolutely right. Yeah. That's absolutely understandable. Right now we're looking at a situation where sanctions have been weaponized to the extent that countries had to go figure something else out. And being tied to the US dollar means that anytime the interest rate goes up, anytime there's fluctuations in the value of the dollar, other currencies have a much harder time regulating their own economies because of that. So the dollar, unfortunately, has been weaponized. And when you weaponize something to that extent, people find other ways. And that's what seems to have happened.
And that explains why China also is getting rid of the US treasuries.
Right.
As a matter of fact, if I am to say, if I am to think in terms of the historical trends, I'll go back to the 80s. How was the economy in Japan at that time?
Oh, right.
So, who sank the economy of Japan? We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Well, and the Japanese also.
Yeah, but it was planned.
It was, yes.
We did not want Japan to move that fast. They were moving at a faster pace than you can even imagine.
Right.
And we had to figure out a way of how to sink their economy through the financial aspects of it.
Yep.
Using the dollar. That's why they sort of bought a lot of US treasuries. And they are the largest holder. I don't see the same outcome with China.
I don't. And here's the reason I don't, because China is a very large economy.
Okay.
And so, Japan, although Japan is kind of big on the global stage. They're a small economy. They're a small country.
Yeah.
China isn't. And China has a large percent of the world's population.
That's correct.
So does India, of course, but India's economy isn't the same as China's economy. It's not even in the same playing field.
You can even compare those
right.
two.
It's not comparable.
Actually, believe it or not, at some point, actually, I'm glad you brought this up because I'm going to share it with you guys, all of you to see. At some point, I'm going to show you a graph.
Yeah.
And just you guys take a look and you'll see how at some point, China and India economy crossed like this.
Really?
Yeah. But after that, it went up. So take a look at this, guys. I'm going to show you here, share it with you. And look at this graph. Can you see?
Nope. Yep, there it is.
Okay. Now,
it's coming.
Just watch this where it will cross in the 81, 81, 82, 83. And look what happened after that. Look where it's going right there. It crosses. Then all of a sudden, just
India
look at
drops
that.
off.
Look at that.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, all the way up. So I'm glad you brought this up because to those who argue that India is going to be the superpower, it's nonsense. India is not going to overtake China.
Oh God!
And China is going to overtake the U.S. And this is why I wanted to share this with you.
No, that's a wonderful graph. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Share that. Yeah, I get them on my my Twitter feed. So
so
just to highlight to you guys,
that's a great representation.
Exactly. So that we're going to tie it to your point about where China's headed with its GDP and debt.
Right. So, and I want to be clear that debt is something that is very typically used to build up a country. So this isn't something crazy. This isn't something that China shouldn't be doing. It's just, sometimes when you grow, things get out of hand. And so one of the things, we watched Evergrande, right? So we had Evergrande, and then the formerly largest property developer, Country Garden, I think it's so they entered actually into a grace period because they also had failure problems.
They missed payments.
Yeah. So not only them, okay, but so now one of the country's biggest private wealth managers missed payments on multiple shadow banking, meaning high yield products. So I want to speak to China's real estate for a second because China's real estate is possibly the largest asset class on the planet. And I want to show this. This graph showing exactly how big China's. There it is. Showing exactly how big China's, especially residential property asset class is. It's huge. Look at it compared even to the United States.
Wow.
That's substantial. So for China to have these problems in the real estate sector isn't the same as if the United States was, although when the United States had problems in the real estate sector, for example, 2008, the situation was horrendous.
Well, we saw the outcome of that.
Right. We unfortunately saw the outcome of that. So when China's having problems in this asset class, it's a really big problem. Okay, so now back to Zhangji. I hope I pronounced that right. Enterprise Group, which Bloomberg calls it a secretive financial conglomerate that manages about 1 trillion yuan, which is $138 billion. And so they have actually missed payments. And a total of 106 trust products worth 44 billion yuan defaulted this year alone through July 31st. So last month. According to data provided by U.S Trust. And real estate investments accounted for 74% of that by value. So looking at and I know that this is like a lot of heavy information, but it's important that we're looking at how important China's real estate is to China and looking at where a lot of these things are failing. And that's real estate investments. So in between China's Country Garden, Evergrande, and now Zhangji Enterprise, we're starting to see, and China's economy's growth has slowed substantially. So I just wanted to bring this up because China is facing a lot of these problems as it's sort of externally trying to mitigate them. China's youth unemployment rate is seriously high. From April to June, the jobless rate for 16 to 24-year-olds. So, I mean, this is a population of young people that should really be beginning their lives, reached 21.3%.
I wonder why that is.
I also wonder why that is.
So, if I am to think outside the box, I would say the advancements in technology will now convince the young generation to say, well, I need to work for, let's say, hypothetically, for $2 a day.
That's a great question. Yeah.
When I could do something else differently. So why even bother with working? However, knowing what I know a little bit about the Chinese culture and the mindset, they won't think like that.
Right. That's unfortunately a little bit of a
because
Western
that's one
mindset.
thing about the changes in society.
Yeah.
Anytime society advances, the mindset also will have to reflect that one. That's just me thinking outside the box here, looking from outside in.
Yeah.
Because it surprised me when I read the stats too.
Right.
Why the young unemployment, or youth unemployment rather, in China is high.
It's so high.
So is this a reflection of the new direction of where China's headed as far as technology and all that stuff? Young people don't want to work.
Right.
That's kind of.
Well, I don't, it's probably a combination of things, right? It's probably a combination of the jobs that they went to university for are not there, right?
Which means society is becoming more educated.
Right. And that's a similar thing that actually happened here and happens in countries as they get stronger and stronger economically. And we've been having a lot of conversations about Africa recently.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest reasons is because look at all of the world's eyes are turning to Africa. One of the reasons is because Africa is starting to develop. And so right now we're seeing population boom in Africa.
And it has a young population.
And it has a young and growing population.
Yeah.
And population that is actually willing to work for, a very, very low wages, which is one of the ways that China actually built up what it has now.
Yeah. Well, that is where I see the difference about the new lifestyle in China of today versus 40 years ago. 40 years ago, there weren't many conveniences per se.
Mm-hmm.
So the young generation that is born into the web era and all that, and TikTok and all that stuff, they're not going to know about the hardships of what that country went through before. It's no different than what we have here with the young generations. They don't understand.
Yeah,
they have no clue. They think it's given that they have to have A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to have. You have to work and earn whatever.
Right.
You don't. It's not given. I don't believe in handing. So, and this is the problem we did on a government level when we had the housing problem.
Yep.
Did you know that our government bail out to the big banks for that? $780 billion.
Do.
And you know who paid for that?
We did.
We did. And as a matter of fact, we haven't get that money back.
And we never will. And where did that money go?
I don't think
that money went to CEOs, C-suites, board of directors.
I tracked some, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, they were given as bonuses for Christmas on that on the Christmas of 2008 and on the Christmas of 2009.
And were they given as bonuses to everyone or just the higher ups?
Just use the higher ups. The higher ups.
Mm-hmm.
So and Obama, because he came the president in 2008, pushed for that. Oh, we're gonna have the companies pay back the taxpayer.
That never happened.
Liar. He lied.
Of course he did.
So this is where now I read some articles about what's going on in China.
Yeah.
And a lot of voices inside China saying, forget about bailing them out.
Yeah.
And I agree with that assertion. And I sort of personally, I would support if I were in a position of policy making.
Yeah.
That's what I will go for.
Yeah. Honestly, I would too.
Yeah. They created the problem.
Yeah.
They have to deal with the consequences. So it becomes the question of, should the government in Beijing bail out those, or let them fail. There are two sort of school of thoughts regarding that. One, it says if Beijing let those companies deal with the consequences, then it will send a strong signal to other companies not to take on more debt that they can afford. The other school of thought is saying that will be bad reflection on China's on a global stage, that it couldn't even have its order, its business in. What am I doing? I lost my train of thought.
That it's business
that has a business in order domestically.
Yeah.
Because if you are to move on a stage of being a global superpower, how can you, like the example of India,
right?
You know, I'm not picking on India here. It's a real example.
Yeah.
How can India be talking about superpower status, when your infrastructure at home inside is a mess?
And the thing is, everyone knows that.
Yeah,
everyone knows it.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm starting to feel comfortable calling the Prime Minister Modi an ideologue.
Yeah. Wanting things to be amazing, but the reality is that they're not.
Yeah, China on the other hand is different, of course, because where it is infrastructure and so forth. But it's still that per se, like I always say, in international relations, context matters.
Yeah.
The fact that it will be perceived on the global stage that what China couldn't take care of its domestic mess with the debt of these companies. So that's what I'm saying. We're just presenting the argument here for you to see both sides of the argument. We can't say, well, this is right or this is wrong. No.
Right.
We're just presenting the argument. And this is where I see where that youth and employment's so almost tied to that idea of the advancements that the Chinese society is experiencing.
Yeah.
The standard of living.
Right.
It's going up.
Right.
So is this going to be bad?
Well, first of all, it is to have that level of unemployment in any economy is a problem.
I'm surprised.
And China has a very large older population and a smaller younger population. And I understand why that happened. I understand why they felt that they needed to do the one child policy back then. But I think that there was no real understanding for the economic consequence. Either there was no real understanding for the economic consequences of that in the future, or they didn't care. And whoever was in charge then was just like, I'm going to kick the can down the road. And that's their problem.
There's a third option.
What is
that
it?
could be was done just for a certain time period, rather. Another word, you could the policy when it was implemented back in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken, it could have been thought of in Beijing at that time, and I don't know this for sure. I'm just me thinking outside the box. It could be for, let's say, let's implement this policy for the next 2 decades,
right,
or a decade and a half, and we see where things will go. Because remember, Beijing reversed.
Right, they did. So somebody figured out.
That's why I'm saying what I'm saying.
Change.
It convinced me that the thinking back then was it's going to be just temporary. That's
well, even thinking. Temporary, even for the couple decades that it went on, it created some economic challenges that didn't show up initially, but they did show up, and they are showing up now. So, and I also, this to me, and I think globally, this was actually a very questionable move, the strictness of the zero COVID policy that China enacted. And I think it was only released at the beginning of this year. I mean, it was for a very long time. It was very strict. The problem with that is it constricted the economy. It constricted economic output. It constricted the economy and China's economy. And so, and it constricted foreign investment. And so I don't know. I actually wondered what their thinking was in the zero COVID policy by doing that, because I personally never take anything at face value, right? So if there's a policy enacted, I very rarely, if ever, think that that's what it's about. I always think it's about something else. But across the board, those policies across the board in the countries that were the most extreme, it caused damage to the economy. It caused huge damage to our economy here in the United States.
Well, for us, it was also by design.
Yes. So we can talk more about that on
Rumble. And we intend to.
But a lot of voices. I remember even Peter Schiff. He came on the show, remember?
I remember.
And he said, the policies that are enacted during this time period, things are going to get way more expensive. So if you need to buy something that's expensive, buy it now, which was back then. And he said that people are going to not be able to afford to live in their own homes. They're going to have to move in with family members. What's happened?
Which is exactly
what happened. Yep.
I believe China did because I believe they are aware, based again on the reading that I've done.
Yeah.
And I usually read around before I'll say something,
of course,
to make sure they did understand that, whatever needed to be done during that period, it was done, except it was also time to reverse that. Right. And they did. That's why I just saw an article 2 days ago about the travel. It's completely open now. You get travel. That's because they realize also the impact it had on the economy.
Oh, huge impact on the economy.
It wasn't just them.
Yeah.
It was on a global level.
Level.
Because this was managed certain ways.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that one on a Rumble.
Yes, that's something we can't talk about much here.
So the idea of understanding, to tie this one to the current, for example, youth unemployment, or even the state of the economy for China, it's still doing better than other countries.
It is
in the big picture.
It is.
I read the estimation, or the rather the what we call it, the forecast of the IMF at that point, when it said, well, the Chinese economy is going to go down by about 2.5, when in reality it was in reverse.
Yeah.
It was in reverse. I think I did talk about it in one of those videos.
And
so the IMF wanted to say that to justify certain. Remember, when IMF says something, is to push.
Absolutely. And remember, the IMF was wishy-washed recently also about, there's going to be, there's going to be whatever, and then it wasn't, and then so they go back and forth, right?
This is why we had the Secretary of Treasury went to China. She is very respected over there because she's even.
I liked her magic mushroom situation.
I
thought that was great. And I'm not even kidding. I actually thought that was fantastic.
But she is a data driven. Janet Yellen tends to look at the numbers. She was realistic in some approaches, except for lying about inflation being temporary. Come on. Be honest and say the truth to the American people. But the idea of her fear, at least based on what I read from some sources, her fear was the issue of China selling U.S. debt.
Yeah.
They are not taking on that for the. Yeah. Actually, basically, she was almost asking, "Hey, can you buy more?"
Right.
And China said, "Well, we're gonna have to think about that one."
Absolutely.
Because what they were doing, China, that is selling the U.S. debt and reversing it or converting it to gold immediately.
Yeah.
Something Japan didn't do.
Well, Japan maybe should.
Well, Japan, because it's too late for Japan.
Yeah.
Japan is under our firm control.
And Japan's economy, it's been this way for a while, but Japan's economy, I don't know how people don't think it's precarious.
No,
and that's just my personal opinion.
And it is.
But I don't know how people don't think it's more precarious than it is.
We intended for it to be that way.
Yeah.
Straightforward. So, and this is why this leads us to the next topic about how after you
go ahead.
I was thinking just in terms of all this doesn't happen in a vacuum, because we have some other policies in Washington.
Yes. So President Joe Biden, this I think was very recent, Wednesday? No, something like that. Very recently, signed an executive order that prohibits U.S. investment in sensitive technologies. So that means it prohibits investments in, let's see, where are the exact things that it prohibits investment in? Semiconductors, microelectronics, quantum information technologies, and certain artificial intelligence systems. Biden said in a letter to Congress, according to Reuters and Washington Free Beacon, that he was declaring a national emergency to deal with the threat of advancements by countries like China in sensitive technologies and products critical to the military, intelligence, surveillance, or cyber-enabled capabilities. Okay, I have some information to put into this, and I would really like to do a full episode on this. And guys, let me know if you want this. So there is a very interesting take on, remember when when China and Russia did those joint naval drills really close to Alaska last week?
Yes.
Okay. So it is almost certain, is very likely that what they were doing was actually laying internet cable. So right now, all of China's communication, internet, actually has to go in through the United States. Yeah, what is the United States known for? Surveillance. Surveillance of everything. So what's starting to happen is China is deciding, I actually don't really want all of y'all's surveillance. Yeah. But the reality is that I think our drones, some parts of them were made in China. I know that we went to a very interesting movie premiere, and I think the movie was Lights Up. Man, I don't remember this movie's name. Sorry, it was a really great movie, but it basically talked about the fact that a lot of our major components for our power grid are actually made in China. That's right. And that there is a lot of, I mean, this isn't even contested, that they have found back doors actually from China in these systems. And so China's already in our electrical infrastructure. Quite frankly, everyone's in everybody's. But if they wanted to, they could shut down our power grid here in the United States.
Will they?
I don't think they will, because I don't think that's in their best interest. But could they? Yes, they could.
Same way we do to other countries.
Absolutely. So I'm not saying,
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so for Biden to come out and say it's a national emergency and insensitive technology, this is like how many decades too late?
Yeah. Are you going to take Biden's at face value?
No.
I mean, when did they say Biden didn't do squat. Biden was ordered to do, because Biden, Uncle Joe, President Biden, he's not aware of what's going on. Sad to say, because we don't make fun of people's conditions.
Absolutely.
We're all going to get old one day. So it depends on just how you take good care of your health. That's the...
Agreed.
But for him to be thinking, I'm thinking rationally about this, Biden can't do squat. American president has no power.
Right.
So basically, there are special interest group behind closed doors that managing those kind of decisions, but it requires, according to our constitution, the signature of a president on an executive order.
Yeah.
That's basically what is happening. Because mind you, if he is saying doing all this, well, why these specific sectors? Because he went ahead with the chip war, right?
Yes.
What did China end up doing? Building its
own.
So they're realizing now companies in the U.S. are screaming bloody loud at the White House, like, what the heck are you doing? Because we're losing business.
Yeah.
And you get like Apple.
Yep.
You get
Tesla.
Yeah. They all went back to China, and it's like, hey, business as usual. Because to them, they don't want to get in crosshair.
And they also don't want to lose that market.
A big market.
That's a giant market.
That's one. Second thing has to do with the idea of even for this drone technology stuff. There is, for example, you take a DJI, which is a Chinese drone company. So they're known for doing the civilian drones, but also they could have a military applications to them. Well, if the U.S. wanted to have access to that, they're not going to go directly to China. They're going to use a third party. In this case, based on what I know, who was the third party? India. That's why the GI turned down the sale of drones to India. India wasn't trusted with this because they were about to get it for civilian use, of course, requesting it for the military, then share the technology with
the United States. Yeah.
By the way, this is nothing new. This kind of sort arrangements are made before. I recall one time when we sold one specific technology to Israel. Guess where Israel sold it to? India.
Wow.
So that's just the norm.
Yeah.
When, for example, when the raid in Abbottabad about Al Qaeda and all that back then, and what happened to that helicopter? Where's that technology ends up?
Right.
Pakistanis got a hold of it. Where did they send it? To China.
Yep.
So it's just the norm. This
is
happening.
It is the norm.
But the idea for Biden to say, well, I'm gonna sign an executive order to do, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Right.
Because same for us, we can do without access to this market.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't. Here's the other part. We shouldn't.
Yeah.
And so I understand that the way that the military industrial complex right now works, it has to stay at war all the time to exist.
That's
because
true.
If it's not at war, then those companies, they shrink, right? What are they going to start?
Yeah.
What are they going to start making? Are they going to start, making like doilies? Like, what are they going to make, right? If they're not making weapons
or promote peace
peace is apparently
money, right?
It doesn't bring money. Peace doesn't to those specific people, the ones with very, very strong lobbies, they don't bring peace, or they don't bring money. Peace doesn't bring money.
That's true.
And so now, that's actually what I think the alien and the UFO narrative right now. Do I believe aliens are real? Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Do I believe that's why the US government is starting to come out about them being real? No. I think that personally, my opinion is that's just my opinion, because I don't think anybody knows really what's going on. But my opinion is that is being used, number one, as a distraction, and number two, as a way to justify, because, we have a space force now, right? That sounds like a sci-fi thing, but it's not. We have a space force, and the government is starting to release UFO information, or UAP information.
UAP, yeah. That's like what you just said about the abductions near Peru.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like, come on, But people are, that's easy to distract.
It is.
The ones who do not know how to assess and evaluate the information will be swayed by, oh my gosh.
Yep.
A foreign entity is gonna invade us.
Right.
Do this and do that. That's all by design, basically.
There's always got to be, to stay at war, there's always got to be a boogeyman. There's always got to be a big bad. And right now, one of the things that's being used in that way is China. But the criticism of what Biden just implemented is that it is so full of loopholes.
A lot.
That I'm not even sure how that's going to work.
Yeah, well, mind you that even what he's saying, that with the involvement of his son with an energy company in China itself, over $20 million.
So why did he really do this?
That's why you realize it's not the president.
Right.
Mark my word on it. I used to work in Washington. President has no power.
Well, the president's not even around for very long.
No.
It has 4 years, 8 years, and then it switches to a new guy.
With new agenda.
With a new agenda.
That's just how.
With new backers.
Now
with
you see
new
why we're doing
lobbyists.
the course. Why we're gonna, because that's why we're gonna get in the details of it. Of course, without talking about what do we call it? The black file.
Yeah.
Did you know there's black file? Anytime a president leaves the White House, the new one comes in, there is a folder on the desk of the Oval Office.
Oh wow, what is that?
That has the top tier sensitive information that the first day the new president sits, he has to look at that.
I'm curious. I'd love to know what's in that.
So anyway, that's the idea of so when you hear the hypes about we're gonna sort of create an executive order to do this and do that, no, in reality there is the other side of the story also. And the other side of the story is that, for example, the president of the TSMC, the Taiwan chips, whatever, he's now regretting even paving the way for the U.S. to have a plant in Arizona. First of all, it's not even taken up. That's one. Second, the cost, $70 billion. Third, you don't have manpower for it.
Right.
Because that type of technology, it's not some schmuck just having a bachelor degree. That takes a specialized knowledge to work on that, let alone the work environment. Our labor laws are different than those in China, different than those in Taiwan, different than those in, those people work different than so the CEO now regrets even that, let alone our policymaker who threatened to bomb remember what he said? Oh
God, that was crazy. So I think he was a senator. I don't remember his name, but he said that one of the ideas that was being legitimately floated around,
yeah,
was to destroy all of the semiconductor factories in Taiwan. Like, so if they lost Taiwan, but if China fully claimed Taiwan, that they
Taiwan
would.
is part of China. It's kind of,
I know, but this is their language, right? This is their language,
because that's how they maintain the narrative,
right?
For it to be. I mean, do we all know, if you look at the historical accord we had with the Chinese, the 3 communiques that we signed.
Yeah.
Once you sign something, you acknowledge it.
Well, and that's actually ultimately the biggest issue that I have in this situation,
Yeah.
is that the U.S. acknowledged that Taiwan was part of China until it was useful to do something else.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. If you say something, you stick to your word. And if there's a different issue, you go and you address that issue, you raise that issue. But this is something I learned recently that I think probably other people have known for a while, but I learned it recently. Turns out there was a vote. I think it was like 140 countries voted to make food a basic human right. To have it be a fundamental basic human right, access to food. The one country that voted against it was the United States.
Ooh.
No other country in the world voted to not have food be a basic human right. It was just the United States that voted against food. I'm so sorry.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
I am livid about
this.
What you
mean.
What?
Yeah, there must be some specific reasons for that, except that we can't talk about them here. That's why we're gonna do this topic on Rumble.
But can you believe that?
I will. I believe it.
What? And I think that, they had their reasons, right? And they said, oh, we're not changing anything. And it's whatever. But how bad does that look to be the one singular country that voted against food being a basic human right? Yeah. What?
Yeah, because also with food, you can control population.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have a lot of hungry people here in the United States.
Poverty is going bad.
Poverty is very, very bad. Anyway,
I know what you mean. When you look at the issue of, look at just what's going on in Maui now. No help whatsoever from the government. So what isn't Hawaii part of the U.S.?
Hawaii is absolutely part of the U.S. and those people are very deserving of help.
Well,
they lost their homes.
Now they are calling for independence from the U.S.
Well,
they don't even want to be.
I mean, I get it after this devastation. Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, also the history of what we did to their queen and how there is a dark history there about the Hawaiian.
The government has not done very well with native populations, and what it's done to them has been horrific, in my opinion.
So don't be surprised about the food.
To me, even just the optics of being the singular country to vote against food being a basic human right, to me was just,
it's hard
awful.
To break, because some people here in the US now thinking about, where will I get my next meal?
That's a lot of people that are thinking that.
So that's the unfortunate part.
Anyway.
All right, let's move on to our third topic, right?
Yes.
Is there a third topic?
There is. It's good. Zelensky.
You mean the president comedian?
Yes, the president comedian Zelensky. So the president comedian Zelensky fired a bunch of his regional recruit chiefs, so a bunch of his top brass. He fired them over a bribery scandal, which I think is wild considering the amount of money that Zelensky is constantly going and asking people for. And then being really ungrateful about, which is the worst part. And then, you see his family and his top officials' families giving, their kids really expensive cars and mansions and all of that. And you're sitting here like, this is supposed to go to the people. That's what this money is for. Yeah. It's for the people of Ukraine. This is insanity. So Zelensky fired his regional recruit chiefs. because there was so his quote is, so on Telegram, Zelensky said, this system, quote, this system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery during war is treason. So apparently there is a mass upheaval, and the reason that this all sort of happened is because Ukraine's counteroffensive against Russia is falling apart. And to me, my question is, why on earth, with all the money and all the weapons that have been sent to Ukraine, why on earth is that happening?
Oh, that's
right. Is that not a great question?
Yes, it is. And we get into that. We're gonna be talking about some other major stuff. Major. So that's why to follow us on Rumble, guys. Yeah. Because talk on Rumble, it's much easier.
Yeah.
The idea of it's just very heartbreaking to even know that Americans are suffering here. And I'm not saying again handout. I don't believe in handout.
Right.
But the fact that poverty level is going up, Americans are struggling.
Yeah.
And or take it just with this example of Maui, that the president even said, no comment. What? You president?
Yeah.
And no comment. And on the same day, I think it was the day after.
Yeah.
He made a comment, signed $200 million to
Ukraine.
I was like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Demented or not, it's irresponsible.
Yeah.
It's not right. And we should have a law.
Terrible timing, by the way, also.
I think we should have a law that allow for the removal of a president if you don't do what's for the benefit of people.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and
again,
you're absolutely
there is no
right.
accountability in this country.
I guess
the
not.
Corruption runs deep.
Yeah.
The system is broken.
Absolutely.
To its core. So this is not about just a corruption case here or there. We're talking about fundamentally the system itself. And so all the money that's been sent, again, as a taxpayer, I don't want to send my money to Ukraine.
I want to send it to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And take care of the people in Maui.
That doesn't mean I have something against those people.
Right.
I don't.
No, it's not about that.
I got to take care of my country first.
Yeah.
I'm not being selfish here. It's reality. How can you tell others what to do when you couldn't get your house in order?
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Absolutely.
So, and sending over $130 billion for what?
No, that's a great question.
So I saw the images of those high-ranking officials in Ukraine, their kids living in Monaco and all that, driving those expensive cars and all that stuff. More power to you if that is yours. But to use even when I was there, when I went to Ukraine, I saw a truck. The truck that carries cars.
Yeah.
It was carrying Teslas.
Yeah.
So it's just common sense. What a truck full of Teslas.
I want to be really clear about this because people might have thought this is back in the day or whatever.
Oh, no,
this is recent. This was a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
As you were in Ukraine.
It was in May.
You watched a truckload of Teslas.
Yes.
Going into the country.
Crossing from Poland into. And the basic questions that came to my mind was like, well, it's amazing. Some people can afford a Tesla
in a war
zone. And why would you want to be driving a Tesla in a war zone?
That's a great question.
Yeah, to me, it was just common sense.
Yeah.
And it becomes clear to me that the massive corruption that exists.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known this all along about the Ukrainian government.
Yeah.
Remember, I did the research for the Russia book back then.
Yeah.
I used to travel in the neighborhood there, so I'm very familiar with the governments.
Yeah.
Not a government, governments in that part.
Well, and the thing is that used to actually be common knowledge. Before this, the common knowledge, this is not,
Yeah.
This is not some crazy thing.
No.
Before this, it used to literally be common knowledge that Ukraine was very corrupt. And there's even an interview with Bill Gates from a few years ago, where Bill Gates is talking about how corrupt Ukraine is, or Ukraine is, and nobody said that, right? Like at the beginning of this, the narrative wasn't So this is a country with a lot of its own problems, a lot of its own governmental problems, a lot of its own issues. And this is what happened. The narrative was, oh, this poor country where everything was perfect before. But that wasn't true. It's just not the truth.
It wasn't after 2014. But a lot of people do not know that this didn't start in 2014.
Yeah.
It started way back when Obama came to power in 2008.
Yeah.
That's when it all started. A lot of people do not have the background understanding of where the Ukraine conflict came from. It wasn't happening, or it didn't happen because of Russia decided to send military forces in 2022. No, it didn't happen when they overthrew the democratically elected in 2014. It started in 2008 when Biden was a vice president and got involved with an energy company over there.
Yeah. Great God. It's so crazy to see how far back these things go.
And yet you will think our justice system is fair enough that president or not, if you break the law, you should be held accountable. And this is, again, when you start to question the fairness of the system. That's why I'm saying it's not about being involved in a corrupted case, whatever. It's about the system itself. So, I mean, even now, you think about this Ukraine big picture. This is why we are pushing now towards the next front. And you know where the next front is?
Taiwan
in Asia. As a matter of fact, I came across from the Department of Defense that now the Department of Defense, listen to this. Start looking at ways to integrate Japan, in particular, into the U.S. Force Posture Initiative in North Australia. Now, as an analyst, I can just see the writing on the wall that says we're going to increase NATO's presence in Northern Australia. But if you look at the map, which is all aimed at encircling China, of course. But like I said last time, it will be the Asian allies on front line, not us. Japan, South Korea, and now I'm starting to be convinced by saying Philippines will be the third one.
Well, considering the bases they just acquired, probably.
That is where I see it going. So the Ukraine conflict ain't over.
No.
If a Ukraine conflict is going to be, think of it like a spigot. When you turn the water off, how's the water come out? Strongly, right?
Right.
When you start turning it down a little bit, but you still have drips, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's going to be, in my belief, in Ukraine.
I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
And they are moving into the east.
And interestingly enough, I think that that's happening because we, the public, are starting to wake up about what's happening. And the more and more that's the case, I think that's as things become less and less popular, politicians don't, in their own right, I think politicians actually don't care about what's going on or what's not going on. They don't really have their own strong opinions. What they have is what they think we think. And so if what we think is that it's time to bring peace to the world, then they'll jump on it and figure out some way to make money off of that, right?
For sure.
But it is really in our hands. And I think that we just don't know that. We don't know that we have the power here to say, actually, we don't really want war anymore. Actually, we don't really want the next conflict. We don't really want the next thing that brings misery to people. What we want is to take care of us here. What we want is to take care of the people of Maui. What we want is to take care of the people that we have here and sort of let the rest of the world kind of start to govern itself.
Yeah.
And so I think over time, because the system is the way that the system is right now, and trying to go outside of that system, I think is very hard. And I think any politician who tries to go outside the system is gone in an instant.
Well, this is why, again, just not to beat the dead horse here about the course, why we are doing this course is to understand that the policies emanating from the U.S. government do not impact just Americans,
absolutely
around
not.
the world. And I'm going to give you an example quickly here. Did you know now there is a conversation in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina, with the new the upcoming president per se, the candidate rather. You know, he's calling for the usage of the U.S. dollar.
The usage of it?
Yeah. They want to use US dollar. He wants to, if he becomes president.
Yeah.
Why is that interesting? First of all, because Argentina and Brazil just agreed they're going to create a common currency called El Sur.
Yeah.
To bypass the dollar altogether.
Right.
Brazil, as you know.
I wonder who's funding that guy.
That's my point. That's my point. So the policies, we couldn't do it in Brazil. We're gonna go with the weak link. But also, why Argentina?
Yeah.
Because Argentina has IMF debt.
Yes, absolutely.
$40 billion.
Yeah.
And you know when that debt was acquired? In the 80s. So
jeez, that all just the way in the 80s?
Yeah, to highlight to you
that
the policies that our government create don't have nothing to do just with the domestic front.
Absolutely.
The global one.
Absolutely.
So that's just what I see.
That's and I completely agree with that. And you know, I think this is just a fact because the US is the largest contributor financially to NATO, that if
big time,
if that had not been what the United States wanted, we would not be in this conflict. And that's you know, the proxy war situation, I think is not hidden anymore. It was at the beginning, but it's not anymore.
Oh no, it's became clear.
Yeah.
Look, just no further than what we discussed yesterday on Rumble about the case in Pakistan.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And yet, the average Joe, average Jane here, will be fed a different narrative altogether.
Absolutely. So, and you know, I think one of my biggest issues is the fact that Zelensky at this point is not even, I don't know, not even pretending to be grateful, not even pretending to. So I wanted to bring this up because, you know, he's getting money from the rest of the world, like money that could be going to Hawaii, for example, is going to Ukraine instead.
Yeah.
And so Zelensky actually removed his UK ambassador, I think about a month ago.
Yeah.
And he did that because that he complained about Zelensky during an interview. And so, you know, he had been doing, you know, a good job or whatever, but he was like, you know, he basically said that Zelensky's response was sarcastic to the help that he's been getting, to the help, to the aid money that Zelensky, aid money and aid weapons that Zelensky's been getting. So Ben Wallace, the British defense secretary at the time, basically lashed out at Zelensky.
He's still defense.
Yes.
He's going to resign in September.
Wow.
Yeah, I already submitted his resignation.
So he lashed out at Zelensky for demanding more money, more aid, more money, more aid, more money, more aid. And at the NATO summit, Ben Wallace said the UK is not an Amazon delivery service for weapons to Ukraine. Right? Because that's sort of what this is Zelensky goes around and he goes to different countries and he holds these, you know, these Zoom calls and he wears his outfit and he asks for more money and more weapons. And Zelensky said in response, how else can we show our gratitude? We can wake up in the morning and thank the minister. Let him write to me and tell me how to thank him.
Yeah, that's stupid.
And it's like, you know,
but that's Zelensky. That's the comedian language. The guy is not equipped for that. We already said this. I don't need to repeat that because to me, it's draining. It drains my energy to be talking about somebody like that.
Yeah.
Because he was never qualified to be in a post to begin with.
And clearly not. And, you know, the ambassador said, I don't believe that this sarcasm is healthy. And I think that's right. I think it's not.
But also, if you think about it on the big picture, which again, you know, at least for some of us who've been in the military, we don't understand the realities of, you know, it's not about just the weapons.
Yeah.
Here it is getting all the weapons to win a war. It's about also the strategy and the maneuvering. You know, you get all the weapons you want.
Right.
You know, now this offensive thing is falling apart because now Ukrainian moving all their forces in Bakhmut, but opening another front, which the Russians can. Yeah, it's all about maneuvers. You have to understand. But how can he understand that? Even from his generals and so forth, so-called generals, those, you know, they're not. it's not their background.
Right.
It's not, you can be getting involved in something or making policy about something you don't know nothing
you don't
about.
understand. Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing with. So we can give all the money of the world to Ukraine, and it will still be where it is today.
Well, and my question ultimately is actually, where is this money going?
That's another.
And nobody seems to be asking that question. But all this money that's going over there, what is being purchased with it?
Or spent?
Where is it being spent?
It's gonna take us, the people, to demand answers to all this or make a stop to it.
And I have questions. So the questions really are, where is all this money going? Where are these weapons going? We have pretty much every week, every couple weeks, Biden sends more money over.
It is.
For what exactly?
That's why I said, and don't get me wrong, it's not about just Democrats, Republicans as well.
Oh, both sides of the same coin.
Two faces of the same coin. I don't shy away from saying all this. Anyway, well, guys, make sure, by the way, just to remind you here, make sure to join us on a Rumble, because we're going to be, as I said at the beginning of this show here, if we notice there is a great reception for that on that platform, we're going to be doing more over there.
Well, and honestly, it feels really good to be able to just talk.
Openly, openly. It's almost like you feel I have to be careful what I'm saying, whatever.
Well, we do. We do.
Which is sad.
It is.
So where is that freedom of speech? So we dictating to the world. Well, you gotta push for the freedom. That's like what Macron of France said about. You remember when demonstrations started in Beirut, in Lebanon, about the banking system falling? And he said, "No, you gotta let people express their." When demonstrations were in Paris, he said, "No, that's against the law. You can't do that.
You can't do that here."
It just same with the dictator Trudeau.
Trudeau
saying, "Now you know what he's saying about the housing. There's a crisis in Canada about housing. Oh, he said, ain't my problem.
Well, whose problem is it? If it's not his, whose problem is it?
Dictator Trudeau is also being groomed through the globalist, and that's another what's the word I'm looking for? Another
Rumble topic?
Well, it will be good, because if you make a comparison between him and his dad, that would be very fascinating. I read a little bit about his dad. As good as his dad was, but his dad was also condescending. Because his dad always wanted to show his academic superiority when talking to the masses. You don't do that.
No.
You know better than others just because you have a damn degree.
No.
Just because I have a PhD doesn't make me the greatest.
No.
And that's how his dad was. What's interesting about his dad and Trudeau himself, his dad divorced after 27.
Trudeau's divorcing now.
After 18.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 18 years. Just divorced yesterday.
Oh, wow.
But that's not the point. I think.
Yeah.
How I understand it, I think the ex-wife, she's seeing what's coming. As far as there is 2 investigations going on pertaining to COVID, the vaccination stuff. That Trudeau's family, including his mom.
Can we say this here?
No.
Okay.
No. So, but
Rumble, guys.
That's
Rumble.
So if we are to do this topic, it's going to be on the other. But that's what it is.
So,
but just my point. My point is that how even you start to see now Western leaders kind of, it's openly, you can see it, that their policies are failing the citizens they serve. So when you start to say, I am here to serve, come on.
Well, and the thing is, people are arguing like left versus right, or like, this political party or this political party. But the reality is that everybody is failing the people right now. And both sides have failed the people, right? So like here in the United States, we have a left versus right conversation, but both sides have historically failed the people, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. So
it's been for the last 150 years. FYI.
And it's gotten substantially worse.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you find this very informative, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Hold on. I want to say thank you to Osiris the Great.
Oh,
thank you for your super sticker.
I didn't see.
That's okay.
Osiris is always there. Thank you so much, Osiris. Truly appreciate it. Well, we look forward to seeing you guys next week. As always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time. Bye-bye.